Looking at the introduction to psychology, and we get back to all these repetitions to help you reinforce the ideas. Psychology, as you note there, it is commonly defined as a study of human and the animal behavior. It's also defined as a science of the mental health. I quoted Dennis Chand, who defines psychology as a systematic study of animals and human behaviors, observable and mental processes, and covers all kinds of pursuits from making dogs salivate at the sound of bell to study the growth of intelligent behaviors in humans. For Dennis Chand, therefore, the term behavior includes all those aspects of human activity which we can observe, and in effect, it presents the outward life of individuals which can be noted dispassionately. So note that behavior also involves personal experience, which can be studied or known only by asking individuals to express their feelings and thoughts. An example is when we are watching the television or listening to the radio. Our senses and brains are operating or behaving. So to discover anything or something about this internal action, we have to seek some psychological methods of tapping the nervous system. We would also need to ask the individual about his or her experience. In psychology, the method of attempting to expose the private knowledge of persons by asking them to recount their conscious experience, attitudes, opinions, or values is referred to as introspection. Okay? Psychology has been easily defined as a science of human nature, or the study of the science of human nature. Of course, giving you a comparative analysis, you note that sociology is about society, but psychology is about the psyche, the soul, the inner person. Okay? Is to study how your thinking processes. That's why we hear about behaviorists, you hear about psychoanalysts like Sigmund Freud, all these people who keep on coming when we are doing theories in counseling psychology. You find they are very close, and that's why we separated psychology going with critical thinking, and sociology going with counseling theories, because some are close to one another, like psychology and counseling theories. They are very close, but they are different. We need to show you that these things are different, and you need to know them to help you be a good professional. Now, what are the major components of a psychological view? One major component of a psychological view is the nature of reality. Of course, the universe and our immediate world is basic. The reality is made matter as matter and non-matter. So what is reality made of? Matter or non-matter, or both? So that is the nature of reality. When we are looking at it from a psychological worldview, the nature of reality is a contested issue. Now, the order in the universe is another component of a psychological view. Is there a physical, in other words, is there a physical cause for every effect in the universe? Those are psychological view, and those are the questions that come up when you are trying to consider the psychological view. The other one is the knowledge of the universe. In other words, we ask ourselves questions such as how come to know things? How can we know things about the universe and its component parts? This is what we call philosophy, epistemology, and all that. So you see the multidisciplinary nature of human sciences. They keep coming to one another depending on the situation. The other major component of a psychological view is the nature of human beings. Yeah, we shall get back there. The fifth one and the last one is the nature of solutions to the problems of humanity. We'll get back there. How do psychologists today identify themselves? That's another question. Psychologists today do not identify themselves as part of a psychological worldview so much as members of a specialty area within psychology. The following list briefly defines these specialty areas. One is experimental psychology. That is the oldest area in psychology. The other one is physiological psychology. That is concerned with the relationship between bodily processes and behavior. You can talk of effects of drugs as an example. Okay? That is physiological psychology. There is also social psychology. This is the area concerned with the ways in which people and groups of people influence the behavior of other people. That is, social psychologists study concepts such as attitude formation and change, the interpersonal attraction, sex roles, obedience to authority and conformity. Why is it that people, General Badi, the one leading the city of Nairobi, has no problem with the president? He's not questioning like Sonko was questioning the president. Psychologically, when you do social psychology, it will show you it's because of his background, psychological background. The man is a soldier. Soldiers don't disobey the commander-in-chief. They salute. Okay. Another way of identifying how psychologists identify themselves is personality psychology. In this one, it attempts to determine the influence on human thought process, feelings, and behavior, and to explain both normal and abnormal behavior. That is personality psychology. There is also developmental psychology. Okay? The area that involves the study of factors that shape behavior from the prenatal period through adulthood. Okay, there is also education psychology. It studies problems related to education and learning, such as the measurement of achievement, methods of improving teaching, and dealing with the exceptional child. It assists the individual children with learning problems and assists in standardization, testing programs. There is also clinical psychology, which involves the application of psychological principles in the diagnosis and treatment of emotional and behavior problems such as mental illness, delinquency, mental retardation and alcoholism, drug addiction, and so on. There is also community psychology, which is a new area in psychology. For community psychologists are similar to clinical psychologists in training, but they more often work with community agencies and mental health workers. There is also cognitive psychology. In this, the cognitive psychologists try to understand the internal mental activities through which a person processes information. They research areas such as memory, because it's cognitive, dealing with memory, attention, thinking, motivation, language. There is also the 10th one, the industrial psychology. That is the work of the industrial psychologists in this area. That includes testing, training, and personnel work in business and industry, consumer research, and human engineering research. There is also environmental psychology. This area deals with human behavior influences and is influenced by the social and physical environment. Environmental psychologists study issues like the effects of pollution, population density, upon human behavior, the design of buildings and cities to serve human needs better, and the effects of noise and soil pollution on the people. Psychologists also describe themselves according to their particular perspective or approach to explaining the causes of behavior. Now, the common perspective is physiological, the behavioral, the cognitive, the psychoanalytical. All in all, the work of psychologists is to investigate human nature. Having said that, and noting that we still have 27 minutes, allow me to move and talk about some common terms in psychology. Some common terms. They are very important. And some common terms, by the time we are done with them, you see you have understood this area very well, these common terms. Because our agenda here is why study this subject. That is why we are studying this subject, to know its importance to us. Why, as a professionals in our area, we are not primarily psychologists, but we are studying it. Because even if professionally we are not psychologists, we need it. Because it will aid what we do to society, to people. Okay, let's look at the common terms. Neurosis. This is a functional disorder with no organic causes, whose origins in emotional conflict can often be understood and dealt with by psychotherapy. So neurosis may be manifested as anxiety. You have a lot of hysteria. You have a lot of obsession. Namtaka huyu, you can almost die. Compassion, sometimes phobia or fear. A person can be said to be neurotic case when he displays the above: anxiety, hysteria, obsession, compassion, phobia. Unamwona huyu unaanza kusweat. You start sweating when you see somebody. You have so and so phobia. And there's also mania. Too much love, your obsession. Sometimes it becomes mania. Too much love to something. And you know they say, don't be a diehard of anybody or anything in this world. Otherwise you die. If it doesn't work, you die. Now, think of phobia. Phobia is another psychological disorder. It's sickness. Because why should you have excessive fear? It is a neurotic fear of a particular object or situation or even a person. You see this fellow, you start trembling when you are talking to your boss. You have boss phobia. You are even speaking broken English because you are fearing the big man. Now, they say the guilty are afraid. Why are you fearing your boss? You have issues if you are fearing somebody too much. There is also another psychological jargon, acrophobia. That is phobia about height. That is, I'm short or I'm too tall. You fear your height. Mimi mwanamke mrefu hivi, nani atanioa? Nani amekwambia ni height inaolewa ama ni ufupi ama urefu? Mimi mwanaume mfupi hivi, nani atanipenda? Mwala hana bibi. Inspector Mwala, my friend, is my good friend. So those are some of the acrophobia we don't need to have. It's a disorder. Be what you are and be happy with who you are, with the gender you are. It doesn't matter. What matters is you are human. It doesn't matter you are black or pink or yellow. I know there's no black or white people. You are either yellow, pink, brown, chocolate or something, but nobody is white or black. It doesn't matter. You need not develop acrophobia. There's also psychopathy. Any disease of the mind, which is usually taken to mean psychopathic personality disorder. It's actually disease of the mind. Yes. Yeah, we'll get back to some of them. There's psychosis also. It's a mental illness or psychiatric disorder of a severe kind, characterized by a loss of contact with reality. You see psychotic cases, they don't, you are retired, you don't want to accept you are retired. Or you are not the boss, don't want to accept that. You have stepped down and another person has come in. You are deputy, you don't want to accept you are the deputy headmaster. You think you are the headmaster. No, that is psychotic, that's sickness in psychology. Because you need to accept you are the junior pastor, not the senior pastor. If you are senior pastor, don't be a junior pastor. Be the senior pastor. Be within reality. Otherwise, failure to be within reality or deny reality, you become a sick person. You become a psychotic case. And psychosis usually involves disorders of perception, such as hallucinations. That is, hearing voices or persistently held false beliefs not shared by the patient's cultural group, or delusions, and some disorder of the forms of thought and speech. Schizophrenia or bipolar affective disorders or manic depressive disorder are the two commonest psychoses. Schizophrenia, we know it. It is two words, body and spirit, that schizo and phrenia, body and spirit. When you separate body and spirit, you become a madman or a mad woman, because body and spirit should go together. Even when you are talking, you raise your hand. When you are saying up, up, up. When you are saying down, down, you point downwards. If you see yourself saying up, 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 and you are pointing down, 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 that is an element of psychosis. So be careful. When you say I'm going to Embu and you go to its opposite, you know that is an element of psychosis and you should arrest it before. When you say I love him and you don't love him, that is an element of psychosis. It's a sickness in psychology. You should erase it so that you are within reality and you are the right person. Okay. Coming now to schizophrenia, the most common category of psychosis is schizophrenia. And we have a lot of schizophrenic theologies and in Africa, where it doesn't connect well. It's meaning we need to fix the African theologies and theologies in Africa, for example. Even our forms of counseling, as a lot of they are schizophrenic, because schizo means spirit, not spirit, spirit, and phrenia means mind. So when you are spirit mind or you are schizophrenic, you are not matching. That is danger. That's danger. Yes. Schizo. Yes. Spirit mind or spirit personality is a popular term for multiple personality in which the spirit occurs between what appears to be different personalities within the same person. The spirit in schizophrenia is between the processes of thinking and feeling within the same person, so that the harmony normally found between a person's thoughts, thought, feeling, and actions is disrupted. A schizophrenia may smile or show no emotion at all when discussing a tragic event. For instance, difficulties in communication with others, delusions and hallucinations are also common symptoms of schizophrenia. When you are crying, you should not show your teeth like you are laughing and crying, because you are telling us your personality is split. Okay? The mind and the body, they should go together. Okay, another common, in psychology, another common term that will help us to see the importance of this subject, because it will help us to identify such disorders, psychological disorders, is antisocial personality. That is the so-called the psychopath, characterized by lack of conscience. Anakata mtu na panga. He cuts you with a machete without feeling human thoughts. He calls you nyenze. He calls you kwekwe. He calls you anything without caring who you are. He doesn't think you are human because he's a psychopath. He gives a very young child very big kick. My friend, this is a psychopath. A sickness when you are not able, you lack the conscience. Such a person has not internalized the values of society and seems to feel no guilt or anxiety in behaving criminally or even committing murder. Such antisocial personality has chronic conflict with the society. She is also referred to as psychopath or psychopathic personality. Okay? From there, let's move to anxiety. Another psychological jargon. It is generally held to be unpleasant emotional state resulting from stress or conflict and characterized by fear or apprehension. If the fear is excessive, it becomes or is considered neurotic. Now, the other one is psychosomatic again. It is taken from the Greek ones psyche or mind. Soma means body. So you can see it's psychosomatic, mind and body. I've already said that if they are split, we are in trouble. If they are split, we are in trouble. Mind and body. So we say a good person is psychosomatic. Mind and body, they are not separated. And you are also not schizophrenic. You are not a split personality. You are complete. The opposite of schizophrenic is psychosomatic. Complete. Mind and body, they are together. The opposite of it is the split personality or schizophrenic. Now, illness such as asthma and stomach ulcers are widely believed to be psychosomatic. However, it has been argued that every illness is psychosomatic, at least to some extent, because there is a very close connection between mind and body. I'm insisting mind and body should be together. The other one is psychotherapist. Who is a psychotherapist? Someone who practices psychotherapy is called a psychotherapist. He is usually or she is usually a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist or a psychiatric social order. But in most places where psychotherapy is practiced, no special qualifications are legally required. On the other hand, psychotherapy is the use of psychological techniques to treat psychological disturbances. The three main forms of psychotherapy are behaviorist, humanistic, and psychoanalytic. Coming to psychoanalysis, which appears longer, which may even end the class or maybe the last item today, so that we can go on and on another day and do more justice to these things rather than just mentioning. We engage ourselves more in a debate, is psychoanalysis. Because I don't want to talk about psychopharmacology, which is the study of the effect of drugs on psychological functioning. Psychopharmacology. Now we come to the final one then, psychoanalysis. It is a form of psychotherapy invented and developed by Sigmund Freud, whom we consider in other places. We have a lot of issues to do with this guy, a lot of controversies in derived, but he's a very critical person in understanding ourselves. It is defined as a theory of mental life, a method of treatment. The term psychoanalysis is also used to mean the research method by which the theory and treatment evolved. Now, it has undergone correction and addition over a number of years since Freud originated it. The basic postulates of the theory are that mental activity is caused by biologically based instincts, and a large part of this activity is unconscious, but exercises a powerful influence on behavior. Now, fantasies and wishes from early childhood, largely dominated by sexual and aggressive impulses, are forgotten as they are resisted by a mechanism called repression, because of the anxiety they would cause should they become conscious. Fantasies and wishes are observable in disguised form in, among other manifestations, slips of the Among other manifestations, slips of the tongue and pen artistic creation and dreams. So the mind is conceived of having three structures, according to Sigmund Freud: the id, the ego, the superego. The id is the repository of all that which the infant is endowed at birth, and especially of the instincts. The ego gradually becomes differentiated from the id. It includes consciousness and controls interaction with the outside world, including the capacity to think, form judgments, test reality, obtain insight, and control mobility. It mediates between the demands of the id for immediate gratification, the strictures of the superego, and the requirement of the external world, seeking the maximum pressure available in reality. Now, conflicts which arise between these competing elements are experienced as anxiety. Part of the ego remains unconscious, and this includes the mechanisms by which it defends itself against this anxiety, including repression, denial, projection, displacement, and sublimation. In sleep, the ego is almost inactive, though it still exercises some censorship on the unconscious. Dreams largely represent wish fulfillment, disguised so as to avoid the censor. The superego represents parental prohibitions and the young child's misconception of this, which become internalized. In males, this process, according to Sigmund Freud, is closely connected with the need to repress the hostility felt towards the father for the fear of his reprisals, that is the fear of castration, and the desire to replace him in possessing the mother, which Freud called it the Oedipus complex. It is largely unconscious and manifests itself in guilty feelings. This satisfactory resolution of the Oedipal involves identifying with the father and renouncing the mother, so freeing the child to seek a love object of his own. Of course, these are very controversial things that we shall discuss when we come to discussion. The corresponding process in the female, that is the Electra Complex, which is opposite of the Oedipus complex, was never fully elaborated by Sigmund Freud. In psychoanalysis, instincts are seen as somatic demands upon the mind. There is one primary drive, eros, concerned with sexual pressure and self-preservation, argued Sigmund Freud. There is what he talks about, the libido, as a relatively fixed amount of emotional energy which powers the drives. The libido is capable of altering its aim, attaching itself to different objects as well as to itself, and obtaining pressure from different bodily zones as the child develops. Conclusion. The aim of psychoanalysis as a treatment method is to make the unconscious conscious so that mastery can be gained over it. It is largely used in the treatment of neurosis, where conflict and the anxiety caused is largely to painful symptoms. Freud encouraged lay people to train and practice psychoanalysis. And although psychoanalysis has been criticized from many perspectives, from its claim as a scientific discipline to its methodology, it has influenced most subsequent psychotherapies and influenced the thought and culture in the 20th century. Hence, psychoanalysis places a great emphasis on the uncovering and understanding of unconscious motivation. Thank you very much. End of the lesson. Any quick comments, because we have 5 minutes? Okay.